Thank you. And with that, we are grateful for building more relationships with Kristina today, and thank you for being part of our panel. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Shelby Fitzpatrick Daines to our panel. She is the Sales Development Manager at Instructure, and we're so glad to have her with us today. She is also a proud Aggie who graduated with a degree in marketing from Utah State University. And Shelby says employees really thrive when they're inspired to learn and to grow, which is obviously what we're hoping to do today. And she also says that's why her company has built the world's first learning and performance platform, which provides a unique and employee-centric experience for development and also for productivity. Shelby, we're excited to learn from you today. And again, please join me in welcoming our wonderful panel. I would like to start today's discussion by turning it over to our first panelist. If you have any questions throughout our discussion today, please feel free to share using the chat function. And I will kindly ask Bailey to help monitor those questions as we go along. So to open the stage for this evening, let's ask our panelist, Kristina, about her experiences. Kristina, would you like to share with us one thing that really stood out to you that you have observed in your profession and life about women and confidence?
Okay, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love all Aggies, and I wish I could see you in person. I am surprisingly not experienced with this Zooming. I've done it a few times, but we actually haven't had to live and die by it this past year. So I might be a little bit more awkward than some of you, but we're talking about confidence here. So this will be a good test for me. You know, I was thinking about this and I have a few different thoughts, but to focus on one of them, I think it's so exciting for all of you girls that have chosen the route of business. I think business is a wonderful career path for women. As you look out there in the world, really, I feel like education and business are at the forefront of women's rights. Now, we still, like, understanding that being said, that we still have strides to make and places to go with that, but there is a lot of opportunity out there and the sky is the limit. I was thinking back on my time in college, and I think everyone can probably agree that it's a little bit more, it's a combination of school and a dating grounds. and like you mentioned, Antje, where, you know, maybe personal appearance will come into play. And I do feel like that in a good degree, and I think it's a positive thing, does kind of settle down. Now, I am experienced in Logan, Utah. I have not worked outside of Logan. So for the broader community, that might not be true. But I do love business for the fact of you are rewarded for what you bring to the table. And that comes from hard work and utilizing your talents to your best ability.
Thank you, Kristina. I really love that. And I think it is so important. And we see it at Utah State University at the Huntsman School of Business every single day, the tremendous talent that we have, especially from our female students. And I think it is so important to remind them that this is what really is going to count in the future. Thank you so much. I'll turn it over to Brittany. Brittany, what have you observed and how would you maybe define confidence in our daily lives and professional lives?
Yeah, fair enough. So I work at Goldman Sachs, obviously, as was mentioned earlier, which is a predominantly male-dominated industry, particularly as you get more senior, right? And I think one of the things that actually started to stand out to me as I kind of, climbed the ladder, so to speak, was to embrace the uniqueness of my voice in the room. So the fact that I was one of the only woman voices sitting around the table, I think was one of those things that actually kind of helped me stand out and helped people remember me. I think part of getting the confidence to kind of find your voice in a situation that you might be surrounded by men comes from, you know, doing your homework and trying to come up with an opinion and then not being afraid to share that opinion, right? And I think the more you put yourself out there and the more you share and find your voice, the more the confidence kind of starts to build, because you see yourself more and more as their peer instead of sort of this outsider that's in the room who might be at the table that, you know, we maybe don't initially believe we belong at. But it actually can turn into something that will help differentiate you and make you stand out. So when people are thinking about promotions or, you know, this next job or who's going to get the pay rise, your name stands out because all your male colleagues kind of sound the same actually around the table. So that's something that I found in my workplace. I think how I would define confidence. Look, I think there's always going to be things that you're confident in, and there's going to be things that you're a little wishy-washy about. And I would say that, you know, there's a fine line between the balance of kind of faking it until you make it type of thing, but also having like the facts to back it up. But I think it's okay sometimes to embellish a little bit and to speak on, you know, an opinion about something with passion, just like our male counterparts do. I think oftentimes as women, we scrutinize every little thing and we want to make sure something is 100% verified and accurate before we find that voice and speak our mind.
Thank you, Brittany. I think this is a really great example, and I'm sure a lot of our students can resonate with that as well. I have experienced it myself that I have really great female coworkers or students that I work with, and they might or might not be willing to speak up in a specific setting or in a big classroom, but if they are asked to speak up, if they're asked for their opinions, or if they actually find the courage to do, it's usually very impressive. So yes, I think this is a really great point. Thank you. We'll continue with our third panelist, Shelby. Shelby, how would you describe maybe a confident person or a confident woman that you have experienced?
Yeah, thank you so much. One quick thing I would love to add on to Brittany's point that she just covered. I'm actually going through the process right now of interviewing for a new position within our company. And of course, you know, going through the interview process, you have some of that like imposter syndrome, Brittany, like you mentioned. And I was actually speaking with one of my mentors about, you know, kind of this whole process. And he kind of sat me down and was like, if a man was in your exact position that you're in right now with your skill set that you have and the position that you are interviewing for, he would be trying to skip 2 levels. So that was a really good reminder for me in terms of just, you're right. If I had every single skill or every experience that they may be looking for, that may not be the correct position for me because there's no room for growth. If I'm taking something that, you know, I fit the bill 100%, I may outgrow that position far too quickly. So that was a good reminder of, you know, having the confidence to still move forward, even though you may be a little nervous or feel like you may be lacking in some areas. But to answer your question, I really look at confidence as such an underrated skill. I think it's something that constantly has to be polished, just like any other skill. I am very fortunate. I, again, like Brittany, work in a very male-dominated industry. I work in technology sales. And so I've been really fortunate from the time that I started at my company. I've only had women as my direct boss, my direct managers. And I've been at the company now for almost 5 years. I realize that's a very unique experience, and that will soon change if I do get this promotion. So when I look at confidence, or I look at how would I describe kind of a confident person, A lot of it, I think, is being a little realistic. I have realistic expectations. I know what I'm capable of. I think, on one end of the spectrum, you have arrogance. On the other end of the spectrum, you have insecurity. So if I'm doing something that may be outside of my comfort zone, or the other women that I've worked with, same thing for them. If they're doing something that maybe they haven't done before, that's when those doubts may start to creep in. But if I can remind myself, if I can remind those around me what they're capable of, and really start to level set with them or with myself, that's when I really start to feel confident. I'm very fortunate that I have people around me who are very supportive. I've actually got a few colleagues who have joined the panel, some male colleagues that have also joined. I think this is a really important conversation for them as well. So yeah, I think a lot of the way that I'm able to build confidence, or when I look at people who are confident, women in particular, it's a lot of the times the support that they have around them as well.
Thank you so much, Shelby. This is really insightful. And if you don't mind, I would like to bring in a quick question that one of our attendees actually just asked, because of course our students are prepping all the time, trying to get ready for interviews for that next placement, for that next internship or that next job. And so maybe you could provide some insights. The question was actually about, when you're interviewing, what is something you would recommend to stand out in a crowd of maybe applicants and different applicants? And also, how can that applicant have confidence when, they might be lacking a few areas, like we had mentioned previously as well? What are your tips?
Yeah, Kylie, it's a really, really good question. My answer to that would be different depending on if you are an internal applicant versus maybe applying for a position outside of your company. So if you're newly graduating and applying for a role where you may not currently be working at, I would highly recommend just trying to get in touch with someone that works there currently and start to build those relationships. Networking is, whether you like it or not, it's huge in terms of where you can land. And speaking from my own experience, that's how I was able to land the job that I have with the company that I'm at, was greatly around networking. So whether you utilize a tool like LinkedIn, or maybe you know someone who knows someone at the company and kind of can make that introduction. Quick shout out to your professors, because they can offer a lot of introductions, which was my case, my husband's case with his job that he got. So utilize that resource, but just building that connection, building that relationship, walking them through what you want. That's half the battle, is just getting your name to stand out. And I'm currently a hiring manager who hires people majority of the time directly out of college. And the ones who stick out are the ones who are able to make that connection. My direct team right now, 100% are from USU. They all graduated as Aggies, and it's because of those connections that they were able to make. So that would be one of my biggest recommendations, is just, again, put yourself out there a little bit and reach out and try to make that connection and network a little bit. Second part of that is, if you are lacking in some areas, it's really easy to spin other experience into maybe something else, like on the application that they may be looking for. So don't underestimate the power of storytelling and bringing in your previous experience and how it could relate to what they're looking for. At the end of the day, they're looking for, someone who's confident, someone who's capable, and follows through on tasks. And so if you're able to tell that story, it's a lot easier to get that opportunity to interview and hopefully land that job.
Thank you, Shelby. This is really great advice, and I'm sure it can be utilized by a lot of our students as they go into their next interviews and practice for them. As we all know, you are former Aggies, so our female students would absolutely love to hear also what advice our panelists might have and what advice they would give to their own college-age self about overcoming fear and building confidence. Let's hear from Kristina on this. Do you have any suggestions or advice for us?
What first came to my mind is that people are people. When you're going to interview, like we've been talking about, or you're working, or you're going, in my case, I'm in a sales related role, and it can be intimidating to see titles and to project what somebody may be like or what their credentials are and how yours are lesser than. But people are people, like Brittany and Shelby have talked about. It sounds like, dealt with men a lot in upper management. My case has been the same. Guys are just guys. They are people too. And I think most people want to cheer you along and want you to be successful. And it just brings me back to, I graduated college and had my first job, and I stayed there for about 2 years, and I was in a sales related role. So I had a little bit experience under my feet, and it was time for a change. My company had been acquired twice within a year, and the writing was on the wall. And so I started looking for other opportunities, and I found this opportunity, the role that I'm currently in and have been in for the past 8 years. And I was intrigued by it, but I remember getting the offer and just being terrified. Didn't know if I would dare accept it. I mean, it was a pay increase, which obviously was incentivizing, but I was moving from a company and a role where I had a lot of stability to opening up a brand new office and basically being given a computer and a desk in an empty room. And they just said, go and build this branch. And I was so nervous my other sales role had been mainly remote. So it was a lot of phone and email, but it was with established customers that our company had relationships with, and not a lot of new sales. And so the prospect of doing that was very intimidating to me. And I'm so grateful that I took it. I don't know why I did, but I got out there, and that's what I've learned is meeting, I'll work with presidents, CFOs, most all of them are managers or supervisors in some role, but they're all just people at the end of the day. And I think if you can go in there with the same confidence, regardless of who you are talking to, what their seniority or accomplishments look like, that you'll be all the better for it.
Thank you so much for sharing that example. I think this is really interesting to hear about your experiences and seeing what a lot of people that don't know, interviewing for a job you're uncertain about, interviewing for something you're uncertain about, having the skills and really overcoming those uncertainties that potentially our male counterparts might not even have. So that is really exciting, and I'm really glad you were that confident and it brought you to where you are and sharing those experiences with us today. Thank you. I would like to also ask actually Brittany here as well about some other examples of how we as women can build confidence in various aspects of our life, of course, including interviewing, but also maybe how we view our personal appearance, how we feel. You were talking about that just a little bit in a room with lots of people, maybe majority male people at events. How can we build our confidence here?
Yeah. So building confidence is interesting, right? Because I think a lot of times as women, we're our own worst enemy. And I think something that's important to remember is that if you're comfortable, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. And so and you're not growing, right? And so if we want to keep progressing and we want to keep moving the needle and pushing ourselves further and further into the business world, it's going to be uncomfortable. And I think some degree of getting comfortable, that the fact that it's uncomfortable is a part of that. So, when you're going into a situation and you don't feel like you have all the answers, that's okay. And sometimes that's going to happen. And it's also okay to say you don't know. What you want to focus on and draw people's attention to are the things that you are confident about. Somebody's asked you to speak on something. Somebody's asked you to, have this or do that. Even for this panel, for example, I was speaking to the team, my employees earlier today, and I was like, I'm speaking on this confidence stuff later. I'm not sure that I'm the right person to speak about this. And they were like, yeah, you are. You have a lot of confidence and you're generally really great. And I was like, okay, so like if I come into this and I just kind of start answering questions and talking about confidence, like it'll probably just come to me. Look, I think there's a level of yes, you want to be prepared. You want to come across prepared, but there's also like generally things that you can find that there's a reason why you're there. There's a reason why you're at the table or in the room. What is that reason? Focus on that. Try to build yourself up with that. And then things will come up that you don't know or you're not sure how to respond to. That's okay. You can usually either say, not sure about that, I'll check and come back to you. Or I'm not sure that's actually a good question. I've never thought about it that way. There's generally polite ways to kind of say, I'm not sure about that. Let's stop talking about that. Let's move on to something that I am sure about if you're here to like project confidence, right? And I think that applies to many things, situations that you're in, how you come across to people. And then you mentioned some things about appearance, right? And I think it's interesting. I've had a lot of experience, I think, in 2020, as many people have, where I no longer wear, my regular work attire every day. But there were certain days when I would notice that my motivation in general and my performance in my job was maybe not as high as it would have been had I like taken the time to spend for myself in the morning and just get ready and feel confident. What I'm wearing is good. I feel, powerful and attractive, and I'm going to go into today and crush it. And I think, we lost a little bit of that when we all kind of moved remotely. And I think that sort of pointed out a bit to me how some of that can be important to your own self-worth. And I would say that's on an individual basis. I don't think everybody drives their own self-worth from that, but I do think it's something that you should try to explore about your own style, your own personal feelings. And also think about, when is a situation that you are feeling confident? How do you feel in that moment? How do you then like emulate that, even if you're feeling insecure inside? Because a lot of times, and when I said earlier, kind of fake it till you make it type of thing, a lot of times our insecurities is not because we're incompetent or unable to achieve what we're attempting to accomplish. It's more around us being in our own heads and telling ourselves we can't do it. So you've got to just break that barrier down. And then you're usually able to like outshine most people who are attempting to accomplish that, especially as Aggies, because what I can say about Aggies is that everyone that I have hired has a lot of grit and ability to get through stuff and isn't afraid of hard work. And I think as women in business, that's the main thing that you should take out of Utah State, is the confidence that you'd have those skills. You can do hard work. You can walk to the library in a bunch of snow. You can deal with the cold wind coming out of the canyon and still get A's and ace your tests and, all these other things that we're doing all the time in Logan. So, take some of that stuff, try to build yourself up. Remember why you are great and why you deserve to be there before you go into that situation, and you'll usually feel better.
Thank you so much, Brittany. This is amazing and truly motivating. We have already heard from Shelby that she has mentors and that she was lucky, as she said, that there were females and helped her develop along the way. Brittany, do you have a mentor to help you develop confidence as well? And how do you recommend potentially students would be able to find one?
Absolutely. I have lots of mentors. I don't stop at just one. I've got mentors for different things. I've got a mentor for this. I've got a mentor for that. If I'm trying to, so here's a good example of how I've used a mentor in my career. I have a lot of women mentors, and I go to them for things about, how do I approach the situation that I may be a little too emotional about? What do you think I should do to get my emotions in check? Then I have like my male colleagues where I'm like, hey, I want to go into my boss and have a conversation about how much I'm getting paid. I want to ask for a raise. How would you approach that conversation? And what I found is the more men I asked about that, the more conversations they'd had. And the more women I'd asked about that, the less conversations they'd had. So I kind of pick and choose who I'm using as a mentor based on what I think their strengths are. And that's usually how I identify them as well, right? If I see somebody and they really just stand out to me and like I'm impressed by their ability to speak or, how they managed this situation, that's how I seek them out. And I just sort of find that natural overlap where our worlds are going to collide and try to, again, as Kristina said earlier, remember they're just a human and approach them as a human and say, hey, like, I noticed this. Nobody doesn't like to get a compliment, right? So if you come and you're like, hey, I think you're really good at this, and I would really like some coaching from you on how to develop that myself, you're usually going to get, some pretty good engagement from somebody you're seeking to be mentored by. Yeah.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I couldn't agree more. It's very important to have mentors. It's very important to have role models, but it's also very important to just have colleagues, to have conversations on an eye level, to get opinions, to check in. So I love that a lot. That is really great. We also do have an interest here from our students in general, what you can do in terms of building a routine, in terms of building your confidence, boosting your confidence maybe on a daily basis. Is there maybe a mantra or, do you have specific things that you do with family and friends or books that you read that help you build your confidence on a day-to-day base? Kristina, maybe you can provide some insights into that as well. That would be really great.
Great. Rather than first talking about what I do, I think it's so important to acknowledge that you've got to find what works for you. I think we've all heard out there, I don't know the statistics, but 70% of successful people do X, when they make their bed or they get up and exercise before. If those don't work for you, that's okay. I really haven't found that there's just one answer to this. I kind of feel like it's like resumes. I'm in the HR world and people will ask, is this resume, perfect? Or what do I need to do? There's not a right way to make a resume. There might be suggestions, but you've got to do what you feel is best. And I think that comes down to your weekly and daily habits. And if you need to tweak them. But, I think mine have changed over the years of what I've done, even just this last year in 2020. And with my kids getting a little bit older, I was able to find some more time. And so reading has become a bigger thing for me, where I should have made it a priority before, but it wasn't. And I've just been so blessed by that time that I've taken to read, to expand my mind, to challenge beliefs that I held or still hold. And so I guess I'll share that as one, is that I love reading. I'm getting more into documentaries and just, I'll throw out two books there that I thought of that I've loved recently. A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I just finished that about a month ago, and then Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And I feel like they really complement each other well. They talk about ego and inner knowing, and those really match our theme tonight of confidence. And if you can have that inner knowing, that's what confidence is. So if we can have confidence in external abilities and talents and, or our looks, but all of those things will either fade over time or can be taken away in the flash of a second with an accident, something unfortunate that happens. But if we know and are grounded in who we have, what we have to offer as far as our characteristics, our attributes go, and what rings true to us and how we want to help and benefit the world, and what we want to do to challenge ourselves. And if we stay true to that, that's really going to bring confidence. And you can always fall back to that. You never have to lose that.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. Shelby, would you also be able to share some of your tips with us regarding some practices maybe you do to boost your own confidence? Any books you would recommend, anything that might help our students today?
Yeah, of course. I would just echo what Kristina says in terms of, what works for her may not work for someone else. Same thing with me. This is just what I found works for me. But at the end of the day, for me, building confidence, I have a lot of confidence when I feel knowledgeable. So knowledge is power for me. If I go into a meeting and I feel like I'm underprepared, that's when my insecurities will come out. So I spend a lot of time researching, listening to podcasts, having conversations with colleagues and with friends. So again, I think a lot of that is trying to figure out what works best for you. When I was in college, a lot of it had to do with getting involved in a variety of different things. I was involved in so many things, and that just helped build my confidence. And so that's what I did. And now that I have, my career, I've found that, getting a seat at the table is something that gives me confidence. So how do I do that? I have to be prepared. I have to, know my stuff. And if I'm called upon, I'm, I'm ready to go. So a lot of the times that's something that I do in terms of like my daily tasks or things that I'm doing, is really dedicating time to go out and learn new things. In terms of books, other than the ones that were mentioned, I would recommend The Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates. That really speaks a lot to one, just like women in the world, and two, maybe underprivileged or societies that could use a lift, and how if we lift all of those around us, it's of benefit to everyone. And the second is Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. It's very popular in terms of a book that a lot of women in business read. So myself and the leadership group that I currently work with, we all read it together, all discussed it together. So I think that's a really powerful tool as well, is, get with some of your classmates or get with some of your friends and like start your own book club, or like pick a podcast to discuss, like just getting through that motion of sharing ideas with each other and really pushing each other can really help build your confidence.
Thank you, Shelby. This is wonderful. And I think those are really great ideas. I just saw that most of you have already reposted the books and the podcasts that you have talked about and recommended into the chat. If you could do that so our students can follow up, I would really appreciate that. One thing that came to my mind as you were speaking is those are all really amazing things of how we can work on our self-confidence. But one thing that stood out to me throughout my my life and my work as student and in the professional environment is how amazing it actually makes you feel when you see how you can boost someone else's confidence. And you can do that for everyone. It can be a colleague, it can be anyone that is at the table in the conversation or at the event that you're at, and just sharing something amazing that person did just make that person feel really good, very confident, and it can be a great starter not only for a conversation or an introduction, but it can really be a game changer. And it also shows a lot about you as a person, because maybe instead of talking about how great you are, you share how great someone else is, and usually what goes around comes around. So I think that has also been something to me personally that has been really valuable in the past. So thank you so much for sharing all these advices. I would like to turn over again to Brittany, and we have talked a little bit about that spectrum from kind of like insecurities to a little too much, maybe arrogance. What are your thoughts, and how do you balance confidence with class?
It's a good question. I challenge anyone to tell me that there's a woman out there who's too confident. I find that hard, really, really hard to find. So I don't think we're erring enough on that side, right? A lot of times, especially with perception shifts, you have to overcorrect before the perception actually changes, right? And so it's like we haven't gone too far on the like aggressive side. I would say we're still very much thought of over here as like not coming with as much confidence as a general whole. I would say that like we have to lean in to our male colleagues to learn how they're doing it, right? They're doing it every day and they don't seem to have some of the same problems that we do. And we can learn a lot about how they think from just talking to them. And so to your point around how to do it with class, I mean, I think that being able to back it up is how you do that. So like Shelby was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of research and stuff that kind of goes into prepping for things. A lot of how I build my confidence on a daily basis is by knowing what I'm talking about. And in order to do that, you've got to build a lot of depth of knowledge in whatever subject matter it is that you want to be able to be confident about, right? And so it's like, for me right now, my current job is in the world of ETFs. For all the finance majors in the room, you might know what that is. And I got put in this job 2 years ago, didn't know much about how the mechanics of the industry worked, and had to learn pretty quickly the ins and outs because I was expected to answer all these questions. But for me to be able to confidently address the questions that were coming up to me from my managers and other leaders across the firm, I needed to understand and feel confident in what I was talking about. And the way I did that was just learning, digging in, asking questions, getting deeper, doing research, reading books, different things like that, right? And so I think that's how you build the confidence, and you'll never come across as non-classy if you can back it up with, you know, what you're actually saying you bring to the table. I think where we get into a problem is if you're saying you're confident about something and then you fall short of that, of what you're selling, right? So if like you oversell something, we say all the time in my office, I'm not sure if this is a Goldman term or not, but oversell or undersell and over deliver is like the best way you want to go about it. But at the same time, I think we're already still selling ourselves too short, and that prevents us from even delivering at all. And so I think what we have to stay focused on is knowing that we haven't really pushed that boundary too far. And if you are getting the feedback that you're too aggressive, then that's probably time to seek a mentor who can help calm you down or figure out what are those triggers for you that are making you come across as too confident or overly confident. But I generally find it hard to find a woman that I would use those words to describe them.
Thank you, Brittany. I think that is fantastic. We have a question here that came into maybe also about those different situations and experiences that any of you, and I would like to open this up to the entire panel. If there has been a time when you have had a more so negative experience in a male-dominated environment, and if so, what was your response? What was your action? What did you do? If any of you want to go ahead or can think of a situation that they would like to share.
Oh, I've got a good one.
Yeah, I bet we all unfortunately have some stories.
I'll go first, Shelby. Okay, so I got wind that there was this golf group, at my company. And it was all these senior guys and junior guys and all these guys going out playing golf every weekend. And they had this whole organized thing about it. They would do it 4 times a summer. It's been going on for 8 years, whatever. So I learned to golf. And I said, I want to be in on that group. I need to be able to like have these conversations and get involved with these guys. Like, it shouldn't be exclusive. It wasn't sold as this exclusive thing. It was just something they didn't think to include women on. And I pushed my way in. Now there's girls that golf within the whole group, and it's no longer sort of this male activity. And we sort of broke down the stereotype that like men are the only ones who can golf. So, you know, sometimes because we are kind of breaking the barrier, I think right now, right? It might be worthwhile to pick up a habit that's going to get you into a network at work that's going to help boost your career. It has for mine since I've joined that group. Had a lot more conversations with different people that I would never cross paths with.
That is a great example. I love that. And I think it's really important, again, as we said in the beginning, to really speak up and find your voice. And if there's something that you want to get involved with, that you're interested in, just speak up for yourself. I really love that. And I love to hear that you're great at golfing. That's awesome. Shelby, you had something on your mind as well.
Yeah, again, it's unfortunate that we have something on our mind, right? But yeah, I can think of one time in particular. I was really new into my career, and I was working with a male colleague who was more senior than I was, and was just chatting about, you know, a different promotion at the time, a new job that I was applying for. And at the time I was living in, my husband and I were living in California, and I was working remote because my company is based out in Utah. And if I, you know, got this promotion, that would require me to move back to Utah. And so my male colleague is asking questions like, well, doesn't your husband like work out in California? And it's like, yeah, you know, we moved out to California for his job. But, you know, now it's my turn to kind of move in terms of, you know, what I want to do in my career. And I ended up, you know, getting the position, and that required me to move back out to Utah. And that colleague was like, I don't understand why, like, your husband has this job out in California. Like, why would you take a job that would require you to move? And that was really, really hard for him to understand. But I felt pretty strongly if the roles had been reversed, it wouldn't have been a question at all. That's, you know, just expected. Like, I would just follow wherever. And I'm really grateful that I have that partnership with, you know, my husband, that he sees me as an equal when it comes to like our careers. Like, my career is just as important as his. And there's give and take with any relationship. And so I kind of tried to handle the situation and explaining that of, you know, both of our careers are important to us. And this is my time and my opportunity to advance in my career. And my husband supports me. And, you know, we ended up doing kind of the long distance marriage for a second while I moved back to Utah and started to lead my team, and he was still out in California. And again, this colleague just could not understand that whatsoever of why I would want to do that. But at the end of the day, people are going to have opinions. They're going to think differently of you. People are going to have maybe more traditional views than you, and that's okay. You know, you can explain where you're coming from or what your thought process is, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not married to this colleague of mine, so it doesn't really matter. But I think a lot of the times it's just maybe for some of our male colleagues, it's just exposure to some of these experiences, and that's why they may not understand where we're coming from. Is yeah, they just have a different view than us, and you try to educate them, but you know.
Thank you, Shelby. We really do appreciate your openness and honesty here in sharing those personal experiences. I'm sure this is really insightful for all of us. Before we wrap up here, because unfortunately we're running fast out of time, I would just really like to end on a very positive note and ask Kristina about what the benefits are that you garner overall by being confident.
I would say it's opportunity. I think we've all heard that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And part of your preparation for your career, for life, can be finding, I'm going to reference that knowing again, like finding your knowing, your values, what you believe in, what you want to do and be, and who you are, and understanding that. And if you're prepared and truly know yourself and stay true to yourself, as cliche as that sounds, I think when opportunity arises, that is going to make a world of difference. Yeah, and I think the other thing would be trust. Like when you're confident, others trust you. I mean, I think you can think of any example in life, and if you're going to, hand something off to somebody else, you're going to want to give it to somebody that you can trust. And if they're confident, you're going to be much more likely to trust them. So I would say both opportunity and trust.
I love that. Thank you so much. I really love to hear all of these insights and everything that you have shared with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and being a really great panel here for us tonight. One thing that I would like to point out as well is that our discussion today really demonstrated that this is not a conversation that is about the future only, but that developing confidence and showing confidence, finding mentors, establishing habits is really something we can start right now, today, maybe in the classroom, online, or in person. This is really something we can all start working on right now. And with that in mind, and before we wrap up for today, it is my honor to announce the lucky winners of the Confidence Code book. I just got word from Camilla and Jill that they have actually been selected, and they have been randomly selected as winners throughout this event. So please join me in congratulating Cassie Christensen, Natalie Butterfield, and Vanessa Richards to your copy of this book. I hope you really enjoy reading it. I would also like to share just some quick reminders before we wrap up, to check the Huntsman calendar and to register for the upcoming events that we have mentioned too, where some of our panelists will be participating, like the mock-up interviews, the interview boot camp. We have a lot going on here. Please register using Aggie Handshake as well, and use the Huntsman calendar to stay up to date. Again, it was my absolute pleasure to be invited to moderate this fantastic panel today. Many thanks to Brittany, Kristina, and Shelby. And also I would like to thank Professor Leanne Rapid and Bailey Hawes and the entire organizing team for putting together such a fabulous event. Thank you everyone for attending and for spending your evening with us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Loved it.
Go Aggies.
Go Aggies.